Do you find people with unique hobbies interesting? Why don't you become one of those interesting people?
Welcome back to our channel. Our session today will be discussing hobbies.
If you have the time, you can be creative and it can be fun to have a hobby. And also, as I mentioned earlier, it can be interesting.
There are many ways that we can have a hobby. Sometimes we find excuses not to do it. It's very distressful to do a hobby, to create anything.
Creativity is important. What it does, it keeps your mind fresh and also gives you a sense of accomplishment and empowerment. I guess having that self confidence that you've created something, you've done it well creatively, makes you feel a lot better, doesn't it? And back to our mind, body, and soul. I mean, you're much more relaxed if you have a hobby, and again, it really helps your self esteem if you're good at it. If you suck at it, then I guess you got no self esteem. So
It helps with your distressing from a hard day at work. You're able to create something and something that you've done. You feel a sense of accomplishment. For example, I started crocheting about a year and a half ago, and I've made several cute little blankets and little hats and scarves and giving them away to friends. And I'm just starting out, so it doesn't look too professional, but as the time passes with each scarf that you make, with each item that I make, I feel more confident and more accepting of, oh, okay, if it does, I missed a stitch or whatever, it'll kind of drown out in the inside the blanket. They won't notice a stitch missing or whatever, so finding ways to be creative is very important for you to get your mind out of your everyday routine.
it can reduce stress. Sometimes you have stresses, you're thinking about work or something else that's stressing you out. Well, having a hobby requires focus. Instead of thinking about something that's stressing you out, you can focus on something that relaxes you. And that will really help your stress a lot. It also teaches you patience because most hobbies, you got to have some form of patience to do well, unless it's a stressful hobby. But I'm sure some hobbies are stressful. But the important thing is it distracts you from some of the negativity in life.
It also some hobbies, not some hobby, well, most hobbies do. You're learning a new skill. For example, going back to my crochet, learn a new stitch. You have to count the stitches. That takes a lot of concentration on your part to be able to count stitches and to be able to look at the pattern and see, what's your next step. That takes a lot of you develop new skill. You have dexterity in your hands, and you're thinking about what you're doing with your hands, plus you're counting your stitches. That takes your mind away from the stressful everyday routine. Let's say, for example, you learn how to play an instrument. That's a brand new skill right there. Learning how to play the guitar, learning the chords, learning the strings. You're learning a new dexterity in your hands and your fingers and how to move, and you have that inner beat that you want to work on. That takes your mind away from the daily routine, the daily mundane stuff that we do sometimes, and it kind of distresses you and gives you time for yourself. You're just there with your thoughts and your guitar and your tune or whatever it is that you're doing that day. Just it's time taken for yourself.
Some hobbies can allow for socialization. Sometimes socialization is important because you can find people that share the same interest. There's a lot of groups to meet to share hobbies, and that could be helpful as well. And again, socialization could be good.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't see it that way.
Yes, well, it can be. It's an option. Or you can just avoid people and find a hobby that you totally isolate yourself, which some people want as well. Sometimes, let's say you have a job where you're working with lots of people all day long. Maybe you want a hobby where you're all alone, right? To get a break from
From the
from
people
being
and
around people all day long.
complaints
So
and the phone ringing. That's what I get at work. The phone rings and rings and rings, and sometimes you just want quiet time all to yourself and with no distractions. Meditation is a good hobby. It's hard to meditate because you have a lot of thoughts coming into your brain, into your into your whole physique, and you want to learn how to get all that stress out of your system. So meditation can be very, very hard to do initially.
Also, hobbies can build a sense of structure and a routine. As you mentioned earlier, sometimes you want to break from a routine, but let's say you lead a very hectic life, you might want to have a routine that's different. So instead of having a lifestyle all over the place, sometimes a hobby is a routine. Now, there's two ways that the hobby can develop a routine. It could be that you do it every day at a certain time, or you meet up with a social group at a certain time, or it could be that it requires a set of skills and a certain routine to complete the hobby, depending on how you do that. So that could be good to have the structure in some cases, right? Again, back to, if you're tired of structure because that's what you do all day long, you might want to have a break from that and have a hobby that doesn't have too much structure. But then again, you might want to do the opposite. So try to pick a hobby that's pretty much, I guess, the opposite of what you normally do all the time and is wearing you down. That way it'll be more relaxing by doing the opposite and getting a break from whatever your everyday life is. Do you ever get bored? Wasted time could be constructive time. You could use that time constructively to create something and feel better about that.
How would you go about finding a hobby that's right for you? I would start by looking inside and see what is it that you like to do. For example, if you like plants and you like flowers, maybe gardening is the proper thing for you to do. Not proper, it's something that you would like to do. Let's say, for example, you took music when you were in high school or middle school and you learned how to play an instrument, perhaps, and you enjoyed it. Perhaps there's nothing wrong with going back to the roots, to what you did previously that brought you joy. Why not, bring that back? That'll be a way that I would start to incorporate a hobby into my daily routine, something that I've liked to do in the past.
Ask yourself this question: what have you always wanted to do? Is there something that you've wanted to do and have put aside that you can do now, that now the opportunity is there? That's a question you need to ask yourself.
For example, reading would be a good thing. I've wanted to pick up a book and read it from cover to cover. Something that you would enjoy doing would be reading and finding out about, learning about, you know, about anything. Like we said in previous videos, there's so much information out there. There's really no excuse not to know how to do something, or picking up a book and reading something that you've always wanted to do. Other stuff that I would have wanted to do would be learning a new language. Like Portuguese would be a good language to learn for me, or even learning how to read in other languages that I already know. It's something that stimulates your mind and keeps you occupied and distresses you. Forget about all your routine and sit there with your book. It's just you and your book, and that would be enjoyable to me, like reading the Divina Commedia in Italian. I have it somewhere.
Okay, Dante.
And what are your strengths? Finding out what your strengths are, looking deep inside and see, do you want to enhance those strengths? What is it that your strengths are? Like your strengths are in computers, right?
I don't know.
You know everything about
No, I
computers.
don't.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
No?
No, I don't. There's always more to learn. Well, the opposite is what about your weaknesses? What are your weaknesses, and would you like to make them into a strength and develop them into a strength? That's something else you could look into. Also, look at what fits best into your life. Is there something that you can fit into your life that would be a hobby that would be comfortable?
Like, for example, hiking. But if there's no hiking trails, how are you gonna go hiking? If you want to make it like a daily routine that you want to go hiking once a week or once every 2 weeks, you have to go out of town to go hiking and you need all this gear and stuff. It's sometimes not feasible to do so, and you want something that you can practically do it at least once or twice a week, to make it a hobby.
Another thing, what hobbies have you seen or observed that interest you? Have you seen other people doing hobbies that you find interesting and you figure, hey, maybe that's something I want to do? No one ever really starts as an expert. You got to start somewhere. So don't be scared off or deterred because you're a beginner or a novice in a particular area.
Like Tony said, nobody starts as an expert. For example, if you go to a yoga class, a lot of people are intimidating by others that have been doing yoga for 5, 6, 7 years or have done it throughout their whole lifespan. You're not gonna go in there and stretch the way they do. So cut yourself some slack and know that you're not at that level. You start at your own level and you will progress with time, but you need to be consistent with it. Also, when you go to, let's say, an aerobics class or any of those classes, or at any hobby that you start off with, you're not going to start off doing it at, you do it at your best. You're not going to do it like someone who has done it for a long period of time.
Examples would be, say, reading, writing, gardening, exercising, cooking, and I guess even vlogging. A lot of people do. Well, it's an option.
Let us know what your hobbies would are, how you started your hobby, and comment below and let us know what you think. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Bye.
Ready?
No.
Two hours later.
Find a hobby. Find. What does it say?
I can't read.
And